Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today, I will discuss I, Vampire Vol.2. It was titled Rise of the Vampires, and it was written by Josh Fialkov with art by Andrea Sorrentino, with issues 7 to 12 being released between May and October of 2012. The main character of this book, Andrew Bennett, a 600-year-old vampire from England, has been around since the early 80s, with his New 52 power arsenal being quite extensive, and during his first storyline in Volume 1, he went fang to fang with longtime lover Mary, Queen of Blood, as she created a vampire army, all while Andrew and his assistant, Professor John Troughton, met young vampire slayer named Tig, who then decided to kill our main character. Yes, that really happened. And because of it, a 4-part crossover involving the Justice League Dark is where we will begin. This book opens on Justice League Dark number 7, and the current team is seen in full here with John Constantine, Boston Brand or Deadman, Zatanna Zatara, Ruckshade the Changing Man, and Madame Xanadu. They're involved now because Andrew's death had a big rift effect on them, with Constantine saying he did meet Bennett once, which happened in issue number 4 of the I, Vampire series, but no one else seems to know him. Hard to believe. Anyway, John is forced to join the team's new mission as Ruck takes them to Gotham City, since that is where Andy bit the dust. But aside from here, this Vampire Chaos isn't mentioned in any other Bat Family title, so yeah. The team is then appropriately ambushed by ravenous bats next, and I find it kind of funny that the guy with the reality warping clothing called the M-Vest cannot believe vampires exist. As the team then sees the blood-sucking brigade in attack mode, Batgirl is in the midst of fighting them until needing help. So the first one to do so is Deadman, except his body-possessing power doesn't seem to work too well here. In the next 2 pages, Constantine brings out his inner Van Helsing during an assist to Batgirl, who says she's heard of this group from Batman, which makes sense since he saw Zatanna in Justice League Dark Volume 1. Oh, and Shade's M-Vest is going totally batty. It was right there, come on. After Zatanna uses her backward magic to join in on the vampire slaying, John tries to conjure up his own magic safety ring, which doesn't work due to a more powerful one than him, stated by Xanadu, and Batgirl then says she's gotta take off to meet the only one allowed to scare people in bat-related manner in this city. And he's currently with Mr. Troughton and Tig, all up to their necks in vampires at the Gotham courthouse. So the team head that way, with Xanadu spotting the master behind this, the oldest and most evil vampire of them all, Kane. The mysterious Madame then decides to go for an astral trip to another dimension where she meets a crystal blue Buddha, who says if she grants a favor from a higher source, her team will not be pleased. For now, though, her body is protected by Batman and the other heroes, plus she asked Deadman and Constantine to also retrieve Andrew from the land of the dead, with them reluctantly going thanks to magic involving booze and a gerbil that John randomly had on deck ready to go. No one tell Richard Gere that. Issue number 7 brings us into the life of Andrew Bennett, or the afterlife, I should say, or whatever the hell happens to a vampire upon expiration. And speaking of hell, that's not where Andy is, as he wakes up in a place of pure white, with a voice telling him this is nowhere and he resides there now because his time is not done yet. This is all explained more with some really cool art, gave off the Albrecht Dürer engraving vibes, and Bennett is told that Cain's existence is rooted in biblical evil, and along with a female mate, he was practically primordial. My theory is after God sent him into transience, he did the whole Lucifer Morningstar thing, but that's just me. And while Andrew is shown what kind of death Cain can cause, he's told his next foe was once defeated by a legion of mystical warriors. Kinda like the Justice League Dark. And he got placed as the seal to jail him for unsaid reasons here. Back to reality, Tig, John Troughton, Mary, and Batman are now face to face with Cain in Gotham City because that's where Volume 1 of this title left off, as the Dark Knight got in on this adventure. I mean, how could you not have him present for the big vampire story? Anywho, Mary tries to show that she's the new bad bitch around, to which Cain tosses her away effortlessly right before Zatanna, the Changing Man, and Xanadu's emptied body show up to help. Mary is quick to recover, but with no more vampires answering to her, she has to eliminate a bunch of them, just like Tig and Troughton are, while Batman says he has to meet Robin elsewhere. Not the best time. Mary does pick up the slack though, insulting the JLD and going full out she-wolf, tearing apart some of her comrades while Zatanna goes full on Eric Draven. The double page art is pretty friggin' sweet, continuing with Cain amassing immense magical energies, and in the last scene casts a dark wave upon the city while Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Catwoman fight the vampires. Justice League Dark number 8 continues on with Constantine and Deadman flying through the in-between realm, and Boston mentions how he was shot and killed while doing a circus high wire act. Wonder if he ever met John and Mary Grayson. Aside from that, the two end up finding Andrew, however, he believes that staying in this place is punishment for all his wrongdoings and refuses to go. A lot is going on in other areas, such as Gotham, where the rest of the JLD plus Batman fight vampires and evil tornadoes. Then over at the Astral Zone, Xanadu slipped to. She is being called daughter by Crystal Buddha as she asks for a power shift to happen, which Cain immediately seems to feel right as Troughton and Tig are feeling like they're about to become food. Rux Mvest next decides to go insane again around the same time Xanadu is waking up with vague words for Zatanna, who still fends off the vampires and is also told that Ruck accidentally killed his girlfriend Kathy, who highly haunted him in Volume 1, which is why he's so unstable, finally now giving into his severe issues and allowing his body to be carried over inside to a different bizarre rainbow reality where Kathy waits to ask him suspicious questions about his team. Regardless, he is gone, as it is stated by Xanadu, leading into Mary joining her and Zatanna after a quick insult, of course. Then the trio of ladies jump into action quite enticingly, only to then be easily teleported away by Cain in about 2 seconds. The Vampire King isn't done with them though, rallying his army just as Constantine and Deadman return minus Bennett, so Xanadu believes this is the end, giving her version of thanks to the team for coming together. But suddenly, even to Batman's noticing, Andrew does decide to return to the side of the Justice League Dark and Mary. Issue number 8 concludes this opening storyline with Andrew returning to Earth and Cain calling him the Demon Seal, But he's much more than that now, as his abilities have gotten beyond stupidly strong, showcased when he turns his foe's vampire army to dust by simply raising his hands. Kane then tries to attack, but Andy says they're equally powerful now and is called a traitor for what he's done over the centuries. Also, him stating he was playing by rules before seems a bit false. You killed your own kind, but still let Mary kill other people whenever. Pretty loose rulebook. Regardless, he's got new plans going forward, suddenly bringing all the vampires back from nothing, shocking the shit out of everyone involved. I did like how Bennett also calls himself a patriot, considering if you swap the P to a second R, you'd have an anagram for traitor, which he's been called for centuries. Mary is then approached by him so they can get freaky. Guess their beef is over. Beauty art here though, and they go on to eliminate Kane with a good old head slice. As predicted earlier, the Justice League Dark is quite pissed off that Xanadu had a part in the power shift without their knowledge, while Andrew clears the minds of Gotham's citizens involving this night. Sheesh, how many new powers were funneled into this guy? Moving on, Tig and Troughton are told they have another task to fulfill for Bennett, while Constantine insults him much better than he did in Volume 1, saying they will meet again, which was already expected by our main character who amasses his new army for a new beginning. And where did he ask his two old partners to go? To find the Order of the Van Helsings, a vampire hunting cult. Issue number 9 starts up another 4-part story as Andrew and Mary wake up to look on at what is said to be every vampire in North America living under their watch in the Utah Badlands. I know it's remote, but surely this would attract some form of attention, right? Not only that, some of the vampires are getting quite restless due to being promised a better life, and the most hostile ones have to be dealt with accordingly. Over in very gothic Germany, Troughton and Tig have arrived at the Van Helsing's castle with mention of Bram Stoker getting inspiration from them, and when inside they meet the European section of the group and John says they have a message from Andrew. Quick fact, Stoker's first name in full is Abraham, which was also Van Helsing's first name in the Dracula novel. Back to Utah, Bennett is buying sustenance for his other kin at a slaughterhouse and is harassed by some hick locals who get a small taste of his powers. Why even grow their heads back after removing them? Screw them. Not to mention that those two also just stated clearly that the tent party full of vamps has been noticed. So has anyone actually looked in on it to see what the hell is going on in case of major danger? I don't know and I don't care. Returning to Deutschland, John and Tig chat with the top Van Helsing guy there, very awkwardly wording how Andrew is now different, right before idiotically accepting drinks from their host, which are drugged, causing them to pass out, and then awaken all tied up among various planes heading to America. Wrapping up on Andrew's returning to his kingdom, Mary is quick to tell him the children are growing more agitated, and because he's in a rather edgy mood, a challenge is presented. Go through him, and they can do whatever they wish. Of course, no one accepts his proposal until, after a few moments, Mary decides to step up and take him on. Guess the partnership is once again over. Issue number 10 kicks off with Mary eagerly awaiting to attack Andrew, wanting to see just how powerful he's gotten. So while she goes mega succubus vampire, we get to listen to John and the Van Helsing leader discuss their respective relativism. which is a complicated word to begin with, but in my opinion, can't be argued when it comes to straight up cold-blooded murder. The two then talk about how Mary is true evil while Andrew fights her off with a bunch of abilities from force fields to turning his ex-lover to stone. The Van Helsing guy also says that his order goes back to ancient Egypt involving Cain, and after this we get some rewritten history as the murdering vampire cult takes credit for creating the incendiary known as napalm. Not sure how Louis Fieser and his team of Harvard scientists would feel about that though. Andy is still battling Mary, and even in huge werewolf form, her efforts are useless. Then, on the other hand, Troughton and the Van Helsing leader are still going back and forth on moral objectivism and such. Again, neither party here is in the department of putting up anything the other can discredit because we're talking about completely remorseless murder. Getting into some action next, the cult has arrived over the vampire site, and in a scene straight out of World War II, they start bombing the area with the napalm, forcing Bennett to cast a force field over the area before everyone starts parachuting in. And as they hit the ground to begin fighting and dying, it's seen that every one of them wears a trinket of Anubis. Why does that matter? Well, as the Van Helsings go on to kamikaze their planes as well, the leader leaves Tig and John aboard one of them to die together so he can join his associates, including the ones that have died, coming back as zombies thanks to their Egyptian God of the Dead necklaces. Wow. Issue number 11 begins with Andrew admitting that he wanted to negotiate a treaty with the Van Helsing cult, so that answers the question of why Tig and John were sent to them. Plus, he also says he's 500 years old here, but earlier he said it was 600. Whatever. As the massive battle rages on, it's noticed that when the Anubis necklaces are removed from the freaky Van Helsing mummies, they go down for good. Mary is on the front lines, taking full advantage of this found knowledge. The only problem is when the vampires bite a Van Helsing mummy, they become different types of possessed creatures. Oh boy. Andrew also takes the chance to confront his new foe here, actually being surprised that he chose to kill instead of barter with them. Over half a millennium of existence and still your judgment, planning, and strategizing absolutely sucks. Up in the sky, Tig is able to free herself, not even gonna ask why she's got a random razor blade, but she does think by simply flicking the autopilot switch, that will save them. I know she's just a very strange teenager, however, I think 12-year-olds are aware that is not how airplanes work. I guess it doesn't matter because on the next page, the landing commences with Troughton and Tig walking away without a scratch. Actually, they're both so okay that they can run due to discovering heavy explosives in the back. Unlikely. That's all I'm gonna say. Unlikely. Over on the battleground, neither side seems to be winning as observed by Mary. When it comes to those who are in charge though, Andrew rips apart Van Helsing guy real fast, then puts him back together so he can do it all over again, except John intervenes to stop the sadistic activity by cleaving the man's head off. Pot, meet, kettle. Tig even gets in on the carnage, hacking apart the Van Helsing leader before Mary joins them to report the changing nature of the belligerents involved in this fight. Meaning Andy gets to show that he gained some of Zatanna's backward magic powers and uses it in strenuous manner to freeze everyone. Yet more big trouble arises when a legion of mummy vampires return as reinforcements. Issue number 12 finishes this book, and due to the intense magical energies happening in Utah currently, the radar of the Stormwatch team is tripped by all of it. Even though they usually handle extraterrestrial issues, but I'm not complaining because Apollo and two of my favorite members, Jack Hawksmoor and Midnighter, have been sent to check things out. Which are going horribly now, as there are no sides anymore, just Andrew, Tig, Mary, and John in the middle of a massive bloodbath, with even decapitation not being able to do the trick of destroying their new enemies. Aboard the Stormwatch HQ, called the Eye of the Storm, other member, the Engineer, gives the info download to her three associates on Bennett and Mary, so they join in on the gruesome frenzy just as the team is being overtaken, and Apollo briskly finds out his solar powers are not useful, but the vampires can't hurt him either. Midnighter and Hawksmoor then tell Apollo to go after Andy directly, which he does, but after an incineration attempt, the two realize it's better to be friends. Damn though, Apollo is ridiculously strong, yet Andy hardly winced at his attack. Yikes. This whole big new partnership doesn't help Tig much though, as seen when she finally takes a vampire bite, resulting in her trying to kill Andrew. Her allegiance was never really that clear, but anyhow, with her done for, the Stormwatch trio, Mary, John, and Andrew, then retreat to higher ground, with plans on what to do being discussed. Also, Mary realizing Stormwatch tried to kill her 100 years ago. Can you blame them? She is then given a last token of affection by Bennett before he truly decides to become the messiah figure he's been called lately by absorbing all the vampiric sin from his type, as Mary finds out when she has become human. Unfortunately for Tig, she can't catch a break because Andy is now Alpha Feral Vampire number 1 and chooses to bite her first to start his new family. I mean, you did behead him not long ago, which brought in this entire crazy-ass event. Alright. The plot for this second edition grew much larger in scale from the first, which was basically a lover's quarrel between the two leads with a Batman cameo tacked on. I'll tell you though, I am here for this storyline. The Van Helsing name is ubiquitous in vampire lore, so them being presented as murdering psychos with Egyptian magic tied to their past was quite original. However, the direction Andrew went from gaining god-tier power only to make some of the most dumbest tactical choices I've seen a main character make was a bit of a head-scratcher. But the supporting characters Tig and Troughton gave a gracious addition for what they were. Jumping into the art now, Mr. Sorrentino certainly put out some of his best work here. The muted color palette mixed with the layouts of full top to bottom page content really captured the visceral bloody darkness that was within. The huge fight scenes with dozens involved, the looks of the vampires and Van Helsing mummies, and don't get me going on the variety of gorgeous double page spreads. I also cannot forget about the Justice League dark stuff, and sometimes simple descriptions are best. The team that did those two issues put out some incredibly beautiful artwork. The character renditions with the close-ups, the transition from shaded to colorful pages. I wanted to see more of it. Definitely had to end with dialogue for this one because the script here was firing on all cylinders, I'll tell you that for free. Mary remained hilariously snarky and witty. Andrew transitioning into a cool, the Fonz type actually worked. The philosophical stuff is undoubtedly interesting if you're willing to put extended thought into it. And the Justice League Dark stuff added a lot, considering you know Bennett would see them again. The way Constantine and Deadman hysterically bicker, the ladies come off believably serious. Yeah, I got nothing but good things to say regarding everyone's speech. that's gonna conclude this review for today, and if you've watched until the end here, I want to personally thank you for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for, actually this time, the Justice League Dark Volume 2.